So, hey guys, today we're going to be talking about consistency, and we're going to talk about the theoretically most consistent deck you could get. So, to start, if we wanted to get like 100% combo consistency, so we always open combo, whatever you might consider combo as, I guess there is an example that exists at the moment, kinda, right? So, we have the idea of um stun basically, right? So if we have stun, we just have, in this case, there'll be well, assuming we're playing 40 cards, we're going to have 36 different floodgates and or draw cards. So like upstarts, pot of greed, extrav, prosperity, duality, all of those cards kind of consist, well, well, they help. And you can only open so many cards that are not engine. So assuming we open 4 cards that are not quote unquote combo, in this case, a floodgate, then if our fifth card is a draw card, then we're guaranteed to draw into one of our floodgates because the only thing that exists in our deck will be floodgates, so that will still work. So we're guaranteed to draw into draw power or floodgates. There is, of course, the downside of your opponent being able to hand trap you harder. So there's an idea of like, let's say we have Cynet mining, right? Cynet mining can, of course, search us Mathematic Circular, which is resistant to Ash Blossom Joy Spring. But if we want to get to Ash Blossom Joy Spring, we have to resolve Cynet mining, which if it doesn't resolve, we don't get to like Mathematic Circular, right? Which is a choke point. And Mathematic Circular has less choke points, so it'd be better to open Circular to begin with, rather than going to Cynet mining to Circular. And this does not account for, of course, the fact you have to send a card from your hand to the graveyard, which has so many little problems with it. But we'll just talk about the least obvious one: macro. If some sort of macro effect is active, you can't even resolve Cynet mining, which is depressing in its own sort of way. But Mathematic Circular, of course, is also not resolvable under macro, but at least you can normal summon it and then turn it into Typhon, which you can't even do with the Cynet mining because you can't resolve it to search for anything. But yeah, that is the basic concept of like 100% consistency, right? But we can't just play for going first. If you could just play for going first, well, stun would be just basic stun would be a tier 0 strategy at the moment because it's so damn consistent, right? But yeah, it's not the optimal play here. And if we just have our floodgates in here, well, that's like a valid strategy enough. Let's say this is enough to win the game, and it's really consistent, but we don't want to give up on our consistency at all here. So if we do have a mix of like engine and then non-engine, so in this case, like all of our combo starters / extenders, so we're going to assume all of our engine consists of that, and then we have hand traps. For hand traps, it's not going to cut it. So the odds of us opening, so assuming we're just playing 4 hand traps, I guess, because we're playing 36 engine, well, the odds of us opening 4 cards, it's about 40% to open a single one of them. So let's assume we are playing the best hand traps ever created. So we're playing like pretty much 3 shifter, and then we'll say, I don't know, 1 droll. And we'll assume our drolls and shifters are special and they will always resolve. So even in those cases, that doesn't account for 60% of games where you absolutely can't do anything. So yeah, not great. But okay. There's obviously an issue with the consistency now, and we can't reach our max consistency because, well, if we increase the amount of hand traps, that's actually taking away from our engine and lowering our consistency there. So now we're going into essentially territory of where cards don't really exist that do the things we need to achieve like such insanely high consistency. But to achieve the truly high consistency, well, to achieve like 100% consistency for both, it's pretty simple, really. We just need to not have the need for hand traps anymore. And also, for our engine cards, we still do need engines because we need a way to perform whatever our plays might be, whether that's like setting a card and passing, like for example, a Mirror Force, that you could consider a play in some circumstances, right? Or like a combo starter, like I don't know, Dormouse, Floodgate, like Skill Drain. But the answer is pretty simple and doesn't really fully exist here. It's basically cards like Haveness, where the very simple idea here, really. We just need 36 different cards that are the equivalent of something similar to Haveness, but not quite Haveness, because Haveness honestly is not good enough. So we just need 36 cards where they're all going to be, well, to achieve 100% consistency for both going first and second, we're going to need 36 cards that are able to be played on not only our own turn, but our opponent's turn. And it's just as simple as that, which isn't really that simple, but yeah. So we have ideas of cards like by mana. We also have some Fire King cards like um, the Fire King High Avatar Kirin. Except these cards specifically are not good enough because consistency issues. So destroy one other fire monster in your hand or face a field, yada yada. Okay. More or less, both of these cards actually require you to commit 3 cards. So assuming we have 4 flex slots here, these don't work because if we open just one of these cards, or simply like for example 5 mana plus not enough cards to actually resolve the 5 mana for whatever reason, same thing with like Kirin, then you know we can't play on our opponent's turn assuming they're going first. And yeah, same thing really applies to both. And then there's consistency issues like just all across the board with these cards. So with 5 mana specifically, you would need to open like 5 mana plus Draco Tail plus monster. And then for Fire King High Avatar Kirin, it's a little bit worse. You need to open like Sacred Fire King Garunix plus Kirin plus one other guy. I believe that's what you needed for this, right? This card is one more special summon. If a monster that was originally destroyed by Balor card effect. Yeah. No, wait. You need to destroy Kirin. So I think the pattern for this one was like Kirin destroys a card that triggers Garunix. Garunix destroys Kirin. Kirin does like a monster reborn and then a pop. Right, that was the interaction. So 3 cards each for this. Yeah. For both of these, we have 3 card combos. The ideal would be closer to Haveness, but Haveness is not actually a starter per se, right? So these cards seem and sound completely monstrous because they kind of are, but you would need 36 cards that are not only kind of like Malice Dormouse, but they also have to be close to 5 mana, where if you open them, you have some kind of guaranteed interaction. And even if it's not like guaranteed per se, you would want some sort of interaction just so you have higher consistency. But there's a limit to where consistency becomes kind of crazy. I don't know. Let's say, well, usually you do want to reduce your engine as much as possible and increase the amount of non-engine as much as possible because the non-engine cards are a lot stronger. And not only that, but, well, they're better in a lot of contexts because they're more targeted and able to target specific things, whereas your engine cards, they might be like a means to an end in comparison. So for example, let's go with let's say Snake Eye. Snake Eye cards don't really do anything against back row. Like literally none of these cards have any sort of effect that works on back row. I mean, kinda with like Startling Stare, you could log up your opponent's back row a little bit if they summon some kind of monster, but if they don't, you're not really targeting anything on the field. You're not able to really do much here. Since this card is new, does this do anything? Target one monster and one continuing spell on the field, destroy them. Nope. Doesn't even work on back row. But yeah. If we did increase the consistency in this way, I mean, I don't know what the limit would be. Like, at 20 cards, you still have decent consistency with like 20 starters, 12 starters, whether they're like one card or not. And then there's like the idea of extenders and, well, the math on extenders, because you do prefer to open starters over extenders, but sometimes you do need extenders for your starters because of, hand traps and such. And then that makes the math a little bit muddier. But if we don't consider a second player, I mean, just having 36 engine cards would be enough, and then you have 4 flex slots. If we want to achieve 100% consistency in a 2-player kind of setting, then we would need the absurd like 36 starter extenders that are also technically kind of usable as hand traps. So you have something to do on your opponent's turn, and you won't immediately lose because, to achieve the 36 cards of 100% consistency, you would need to cut out. Well, you don't need to necessarily cut out all your hand traps because you have 4 slots for them, but you could also just run board breakers and such, or maybe something like a triple tactics talents, perhaps, in one of your 4 flex slots. Not really sure what would be optimal to run there. I just know they exist. But yeah, in this like ridiculously theoretical high-powered format, I'd be kind of lost at this point in what to do because the format doesn't exist at the moment, I guess. But yeah, if we wanted to achieve the most consistency possible, that's the way we do it, I guess. And I mean, what would this format even look like? Like, if I'm activating cards on my turn, my opponent's activating cards on my turn, and then they know whatever interruption they did was probably not enough, assuming it was just interruption and not like a floodgate, because they know how high consistency my deck is and how many cards I actually have. And then there's even the idea of technically you just passing turn for whatever reason with certain cards in your hand. But yeah, this is just kind of phase 1. The consistency. The actually even more wild thing about this consistency thing is that, you might think that this is closer, a little bit closer, but then, well, no, it's not that close actually. But yeah, I mean, if we run 3-5 mana, that's actually still not ideal for consistency, because running multiple 5 mana actually introduces the problem of opening multiple 5 mana. So if we wanted higher consistency, we would also have to be running only one of every single card. So we would need, well, aside from the non-engine pieces, because maybe they're activatable more than one time per turn, well, that's going to be an important thing. But 5 mana, as you can see, hard once per turn on both effects, right? So what we're going to want is not only, I mean, we're going to only focus on consistency, not grind game, right? But for the highest consistency possible, we're going to need 36 different cards that are going to be not only 1-card starters, but extenders, and they're all going to have some moderate synergy, but they're also going to have to be hand traps. Because, I can't, like, activate Ash Blossom Joy Spring multiple times in the same turn, right? So I'll need multiple different hand traps, and opening multiple Ash Blossom Joy Springs is a possibility that we'd cut from the most consistent theoretical deck. So yeah, I mean, sounds dumb, is kind of dumb, but yeah, that's how we would achieve the highest possible consistency, I guess. But yeah, if we open multiple cards, let's just do some quick maths. It's like, to open just the 5 mana, assuming I have a 1 of 5 mana in my 40 card deck, 1 in 10% chance. If we have 5 mana, it becomes a 20% chance to open 5 mana if we have 2 of them. But there's a 1% chance to open both copies of 5 mana. And then I'm not even sure the probability, I haven't checked in a while, but the probability of opening 3 of the same card, I think that's probably going to be 0.1, probably around there. Yeah, something like this. About 1 in 1,000 games you might see a 3 of. That's probably my expectation. Could be wrong, could be right. doesn't really matter. It's inconsistency. And it doesn't seem that bad if we just have just Vimena like this, right? If we do have a bunch of multiple 3-ofs, the odds of opening, well, I can just do a test hand with a real deck, right? And see how fast it will be for us to get a 3-of. So let's do Unchained, because why not? This deck hasn't been updated in so long, but we have quite a few 3-ofs, right? We have 1, 2, 3, and then, you know, like 6, 7, 8 or so. If we do this, how many dupes? No dupes. And then here, immediately, we have 2 copies of Escape with Unchained, and then 2 copies of Ash Blossom Joy Spring. And of course, the rest of this could be engine, but this would still be an inefficiency because of the consistency here, where we have 2 Ash Blossom Joy Springs, and it might not really be useful, assuming we're in a going first hand. That would be the worst case scenario to open this hand. It might be okay if we're going second because we Ash Blossom our opponent's turn, and then we still have Ash for our own turn. And it's not too bad unless we get hit by Called by the Grave, which is a 1 in 10 chance. And here, once again, because we're running so many 3-ofs, there is still a decent chance of us opening 2 of the same card. So, didn't happen here, didn't happen here, and here it is again. And you can see it happening like occasionally. It's not going to happen like with every hand. I'm not sure the exact math on this, but if there's, well, since we're running 3 of them, the odds of opening them is a lot higher than with 2. So you have a 30% chance to open just 1 of them, and then after that would be probably, if it was 1 in 10 before, it should be like 1 in 5 now, because you have 2 of them, double the probability, right? So 2% chance, yeah, 2% chance probably to open a duplicate. So for every single 3-of that we have here, I think that's going to be a 2% chance, probably additive, to open a duplicate card. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 14% chance or higher, I think. Actually, I think I missed Ash Blossom Joy Spring. But yeah, maybe we're looking at around 1 in 5. Because my math could be off a bit too. I'd have to actually check, but yeah. I'd say probably around that range though, of around, I'd say 15% chance. Maybe even higher to just open dupes like that, right? I'm seeing it happening fairly often here, even in these test hands. So it might actually be a good amount higher, and my math is just not correct for this one, but yeah. That is also a factor with consistency. So yeah, that's all I got for you guys today, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.